I'm your host, Justin McCormick, and today we have a very special guest. We have Matthew Davidson, guitarist for Travis Denning. Matthew's been playing music his whole life, even sharing the stage with Kenny Wayne Shepherd while only in elementary school. Throughout high school, he toured as the Matthew Davidson Band, opening for huge names such as Austin Mahone and Fifth Harmony, and after attending Belmont, he spends his time on the road as a guitarist for Travis Denning. And even with all that being said, I have a feeling this is just the beginning for Matthew. I had an awesome time talking with him, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I'll see you at the end. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Starting Small Music Podcast. Today we have Matthew Davidson, guitarist for Travis Denning. Matthew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing real good. So I saw online that you got your first guitar was actually a toy guitar. So what are your first memories actually that you have with the guitar since you got it at such a young age?
I was about 3 years old. I don't remember that particular one, but I remember growing up in a group in Shreveport, Louisiana, and my dad always had a bunch of 60s rock, Beatles, CCR CDs laying around the house. And I remember being attracted to that sort of classic rock and then later on the blues music at an early age. And obviously the guitar is very prominent in those types of music. And so I remember really just gravitating towards the guitar from a young age with the toy guitar. Then that progressed to a beat around acoustic guitar that I started taking lessons on and just immediately sort of just fell in love with it and really haven't stopped playing since.
Awesome. So were you self-taught or did your parents get you into lessons at a young age?
I had lessons, yep. I started taking lessons about second grade and really took lessons from second grade all throughout high school and then went to Belmont University and took lessons throughout there. Obviously, the parts of it were self-taught too, on YouTube, but a majority was from lessons.
Awesome. So throughout high school, is that when you started your own band, the Matthew Davidson Band? Was that?
It was actually in seventh grade. I think I was about 12 years old, and I started, just doing cover gigs around, local Mexican restaurants and festivals and fairs nearby, and just started doing all. My mom back then was booking all my shows. My dad was my roadie. I was very blessed to have a supportive family behind me. So yeah, just all throughout middle school and high school, just played pretty much wherever and whenever I could, whether it was just a small restaurant or a big festival or fair.
So when did it transition from a cover band to you writing your own material?
That sort of happened, first off, not too long into high school, maybe even towards the end of middle school, I started dabbling and just writing. And this was my kind of first time ever writing, so I didn't even know really what I was doing. I was just sort of writing what I thought sounded good at the time. Looking back now on some of the songs I wrote at that age, I'm just kind of like, oh, God. but obviously I love playing cover music, but also really did develop a sort of a like and a love for songwriting, too. That was more throughout probably high school.
And how would you describe your sound once you started to kind of hone your craft? Because you guys went on and did some big things. I saw you were on the road with Austin Mahone, Rachel Platt, and Fifth Harmony. What was your sound when you were really getting it going as an artist?
Strangely enough, it sounds funny now because I'm living in Nashville, but I would honestly say that when I first started writing music, when I was a lot younger, it was almost sort of like a pop rock type thing. It was kind of like not to compare myself to any of these artists, but I was very influenced by John Mayer and Maroon 5, sort of like the guitar elements of Mayer, but the contemporary elements of artists like Maroon 5 and people like that. So it was kind of a blend of those two. But then, of course, the blues music has always been, and still probably is, the biggest influence of any type of music on my life as far as just playing and a true love for it. So guitar, no matter what type of music I was writing, guitar was always at the forefront.
So I'd assume Stevie Ray Vaughan must be a pretty big influence on you.
Yeah, it sounds basic, but of course. He was the first blues artist that I really ever discovered and listened to thanks to some CDs from my dad. And that, of course, loved that and led me down a whole other rabbit hole of, just all the greats, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, Albert King, just everyone.
For sure. If you had to pick one SRV song that you're playing for a cover gig, which one are you going towards? Oh,
that's a tough one. Honestly, even though I don't know if it's one of his, most popular ones, but there was an instrumental one called Scuttle Button. That's one of the ones that it's just like 2.5-3 minutes of just absolutely just flaming guitar, and it was just one of the funnest ones to play at when I was doing those cover band gigs. And even if people didn't know it, it had such rockin' and up-tempo beat. It was always a fun one to play.
Heck yeah. So I saw in 2013 you were at a Kenny Wayne Shepherd show, and he invited you on stage. How did that come about?
Kenny Wayne Shepherd is actually from my same hometown of Louisiana, and so actually I first way back got to share the stage with him through this contest I was in 2009. It was me and a few other guitar players got to play one song with him. But I ended up meeting him at that point, and at that point in 2009 I was in elementary school. But remember looking up to him and being, man, this guy's from my hometown, and he's just obviously very successful, such a great guitar player. And luckily I was lucky enough to be able to stay in touch with him and his dad Ken for a few years later, and then in 2013, what you mentioned, my cover band was actually playing at the same festival as him earlier in the day. We were on like the same bill, so he was gracious enough to invite me on stage that night and played a few songs with him, and it really always been inspired and just looked up to him, especially someone being from my hometown and another absolutely just insane guitar player.
For sure. So you moved to Nashville in 2016. You majored in commercial music guitar.
Yep.
What was your experience at Belmont like, and how do you think that helped pave the way for what you're doing now?
Man, I loved it. It's when I first visited Belmont in I think it was like sophomore year of high school, and immediately was just like, this is where I want to go. I mean, I visited a few other colleges, but Belmont right from the beginning was where, it was just a beautiful campus. It was a smaller campus, but had all of the commercial music elements that I was looking for. And I had an absolutely great time at Belmont. I was fortunate enough to meet some just absolutely amazing musicians as far as my peers, students, but also learn from some of the best as far as faculty. John Cardone was was my main guitar teacher throughout my time at Belmont. Really taught me so much. And then just the ensembles I was in like a sort of a contemporary pop rock ensemble called Phoenix under the direction of Jamie Wigington, and that was a really great learning experience too, because it was, that's where I sort of first developed my love for, obviously I still love being a front man and doing that, but really developed a love for also being just a guitar player and a sideman and helping part of a group, being part of a group to sound great. So learned a lot of valuable things at Belmont. Also, if nothing else, it gave me an excuse to move to Nashville and start building connections.
For sure. Now, I feel like I really relate to you in the sense that, I have a big musical sense of me, but also an entrepreneurial sense. I saw you won some big entrepreneur awards back in the day, when you were in high school. How do you think that helped you when you moved to Nashville? That's networking is such a big thing. And what's your advice for someone that just moved to town, with making those first few friends and connections?
Well, dude, it's such a cute cliche because I heard it and I was thinking, everyone always says networking's the key, but man, it really is. And as far as the entrepreneurial thing, I really, honestly, luckily I've never had trouble being a social person, so it hasn't been too hard for me. But man, just getting yourself out there, whether it's going to sit in at an open jam, open mic jam, open blues jam, or trying walking down Broadway and meeting people and seeing where you can maybe sit in with this band or sit in with that band. It really does make a difference. I beat down the doors. I did a lot of cold calling, emails, texts, text messages to a bunch of Broadway bars until I finally was able to get my foot in the door in that scene. And then that progressed and started doing Broadway a ton. And then, that connection ended up leading me to Benji Harris, which got me the Travis Denning gig. So, it's literally just one thing after another. But the entrepreneurial sort of spirit and not being afraid to network and put yourself out there is huge, especially, probably in any industry, but especially in an industry like the music industry, and especially in a town like Nashville.
For sure. Now, was Travis your first gig that you did, or did you have any one-off gigs that you had picked up before that?
I'd done my sort of cover band thing on Broadway for about 2 years, just doing that. And I played with a few original artists on the side. One of my good friends, Patrick Murphy, I played for him, just one-offs, like you said, showcase here or there. But luckily, when I did end up getting the Travis Denning gig, that was my first official touring gig, playing for a touring artist.
Heck yeah. And you guys are currently opening on Cole Swindell's Down to the Bar tour. You're about halfway through. How's tour been for you? And for the people that haven't been to a show, what can fans expect from your guys' set?
Man, I absolutely love it. I joined Travis in June of 2019, and it's just literally been nothing but a blessing. That group of guys they're amazing people, amazing musicians. Travis himself is an absolutely insane guitar player, so it makes my job a lot more fun because we get to trade licks off each other and have a good time. But man, if you come to a Travis Denning show, it's however long the set time is, it's just pedal to the metal the whole time. It's high energy, guitar music in your face. We're just there to have a good time and hope everyone has a good time with us, man. We'll play some slower songs here and there, but the main focus on I think Travis and all of us is just to really put on a good time and help people forget about all their troubles for half an hour, 45 minutes, however long it is.
Heck yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because my follow-up was going to be what it's like to be the lead guitarist for someone that's as fire on guitar as Travis.
Oh, man.
So that's got to be really fun for you.
It's so fun. He obviously takes a lot of leads too because he's an amazing guitar player, but we do a cover of Ramblin' Man sometimes during our sets, and we get to have that guitar harmony that the Allman Brothers had, and it makes it's so much fun. It takes obviously a lot of pressure off me sometimes. But Travis is such a good songwriter, entertainer, guitar player, musician. artists. So yeah, I mean, it's such a fun gig, and I'm really blessed to be with those guys.
So just a fun spitfire question I have to ask any guitar player in the country music scene: if there's a guitar battle versus Brad Paisley and Keith Urban, who are you picking?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, they're both amazing. I would probably I'd have to say Brad Paisley.
Yeah,
It's definitely not going to be a blowout, but I mean Brad Paisley. I mean, you talk about, even going back to some of his earlier instrumental stuff, like Nervous Breakdown and stuff, that I was, attempting to, I think I even have some clips on my Instagram page during COVID when I was just sitting around bored, attempting to learn some Brad Paisley solos, probably butchering half of them. But, I mean, the dude is just an insane guitar player. Actually, one of my main guitars I play on the road is the Brad Paisley Signature Telecaster.
Oh, really?
And so, I mean, just absolutely, they're both amazing musicians, but I think I would put my money on Brad by a little bit.
Yeah, once you add that G bender in, it's game
I mean,
over.
it's yeah.
Then I always say that I think his Time Well Wasted album is one of the best albums in country music.
I mean, yeah,
you would agree.
Absolutely insane music, yes.
So I like to close out the interview with any advice that you would give, not only to your younger self, but people that want to be in your position in, say, 10 years.
Man, that's a tough one. Like I said, I sort of said it earlier, but it's just I'll say there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. People can pick up on both. You don't want to be timid when you're going into a situation where you're confident in your abilities, but you also don't want to turn people off by your attitude. But just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Be confident in your abilities. Make connections with people, even if someone, and it's not to say they don't seem important, but you never know you never know, especially playing on Broadway, you never know who's watching you in the bar in Nashville, or who's going to see you in this situation or the other. So always just, every time you're out in a professional setting, just be professional. Act, just try to do your best and put yourself out there, and just don't be afraid and don't be afraid to be told no too. I mean, when I first started, trying to break into the Broadway and touring scene, there's a lot of no's, a lot of no replies, and that can be, after a while that can be a little disheartening. But just try to keep your head on straight and just be professional, and most of all be confident and have a good time.
Well, guys, there you have it. My conversation with Matthew Davidson. Matthew, thank you again so much for joining the show. I had an awesome time talking with you. Everyone go follow him on Instagram at MATTH Davidson. And come back next week to hear my conversation with country artist and songwriter Paige King Johnson.